If you think global warming is a hoax, think again. The UN climate report is out, and unless there's a rapid and dramatic reduction in greenhouse gases, temperatures will rise by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. This breaches the ambition of the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. And this impacts our beautiful beaches too, like this one in Nilavali on the northeast coast of Sri Lanka. But there are young people like Siddharth Jha who have taken matters into their own hands. Welcome to Kaleidoscope with me, Savitri Rodrigo. With the rise in global temperatures, 93% of the heat accumulated in the Earth's atmosphere will be absorbed by the oceans, which will naturally impact marine life, fish stocks, and rising sea levels as well. And then there's the unabated problem of pollution. Now here's a 16-year-old who decided to do something about it. He started cleaning up beaches when he was just 12. Founded Save My Sea, and with a group of volunteers is regularly seen on the beach, cleaning up.
I founded Save My Sea in June earlier this year. I had this uniquely gratifying experience when I volunteered with the Pearl Protectors and cleaned up nurdles from the beaches last month. And I wanted to share this experience with other people, especially people my age as well. And so, in collaboration with the Marine Environment Protection Authority, or MIPA, on the 31st of July, we had our first ever beach cleanup. Now, we plan to have one beach cleanup every month, along with a flyer distribution campaign to spread awareness, along with a social media campaign, again for awareness. We also plan on bringing on board prominent environmentalists to help guide us further. And so, if you are interested in helping Save My Sea, or if you're passionate about the environment in any way, please contact us today. Join Save My Sea.
Kaleidoscope is positive, daring, different. Today, we tour Harpo's marketplace, delve into the mergers and acquisitions space, chat with a boy and his dolls, check out the Global South's visa dilemma, take a look at the week that was, and put a smile on your face too. And now, here's a glimpse of the week that was on Kaleidoscope Snapshot. In the first half of 2021, Colombo land prices moved up year-on-year by 9.5%. Despite travel restrictions, tourist arrivals increased for the third consecutive month in July, with the first 7 months seeing 19,337 visitors. Credit card spend declined for the second month in a row to 118.6 billion rupees in June. Premier yacht manufacturer Seahorse Yachts will invest 11.5 billion rupees in a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility at the Hambantota port. Nasdaq, America's second-largest stock exchange, has set diversity rules for companies. The Z boards must include at least one female and one minority or LGBTQ person. With 660 million downloads, TikTok is the world's most popular mobile video app. In Singapore, the world's smallest baby, just 212 grams when born, the weight of an apple, comes home after 13 months in hospital. We return with our Kaleidoscope news capsule featuring Shiluka Gunawardana and Harpo Gunaratna, in addition to market news and a tall story. Welcome back. This is our news capsule. It seems like a buyer's market in the mergers and acquisitions space. So which industries and sectors should investors be looking at? I asked Principal and Head of Deal Advisory and Deputy Head of Markets at KPMG in Sri Lanka, Shiluka Gunawardana, for some answers.
So with regards to the question, it is a buyer's market with regard to certain industries, take hotels, some of the companies impacted by import restrictions, some of the smaller financial services companies, that is the case. Valuations are challenging and certainly are less than what it was a couple of years back. But if you take sectors such as the export-oriented industries, companies in FMCG, pharmaceutical manufacturing and technology, it is actually the opposite. It is a seller's market. Both promoters and shareholders are seeing and getting good valuations, and that market will continue to grow. Overall, the market is quite buoyant.
And let's turn our focus on the markets this week. At close of market on Thursday, the Colombo Stock Market's all-share price index was down by 1.04%, while the average daily turnover registered 3.94 billion rupees. Asia was buying less oil this week, keeping to $69.70 per barrel. Asian refiners have nominated lower than usual volumes of crude oil from Saudi Arabia in September as authorities have reimposed restrictions to fight the Delta variant surge. A slight recovery was seen in gold this week from near one-year lows to $1,755 per ounce. A restaurateur and entrepreneur who always finds opportunities in challenges, Harpo Gunaratna, who launched the Harpo's retail range in 2018, decided to add to his retail formula when the pandemic hit and shopping patterns changed. He launched Harpo's Marketplace, not just with his nearly 40 fresh homemade products, but by adding a space for local startups and home cooks to retail their products as well. I asked Harpo to give us a tour.
So welcome to Harpo's Marketplace, situated in Atul Kote in the Harpo's Pizza and Pasta outlet. So Harpo's Marketplace actually consists of 35 of our own products. We also have Canecraft, which has done some really exclusive stuff for us here. We have the Tukung, just come with some lovely pasta bowls and soup bowls for us. And like I said, we have a wide range of local producers who have come and displayed their stuff here. We also have a big range of frozen items, from pizza to lasagna to pizza dough to dumplings, lots of other stuff. So Harpo's Marketplace is a concept where you can come, dine, you can also bring your own wine if you like to, and also do some retail therapy here. And we are keeping it just simply local. That's the concept of Harpo's Marketplace, just simply local.
There's a woman at the top of the world's tallest building. Emirates Airlines put a flight attendant on the top of the world, making her stand at 2,722 feet on the towering Burj Khalifa in Dubai to celebrate the airline reopening travel to the UK. Stanford's Dr. Lakmali Jayasinghe looks at the problems of visas for the Global South. That's up next.
Making all your new goals in life a reality is why our strength is your strength. With 12 billion rupees worth of customer benefits in 2020 and a life insurance fund worth over 100 billion rupees, our strength is your strength. You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Zelenko Life.
Being a holder of a Sri Lankan passport, each time I fill in an application for a visa, I am filled with a mixture of dread, uncertainty and even fear. The forms, documents, bank statements, letters, photocopies, more forms, and then there's the interview. The application becomes like a mini Bible, and the questions asked in the process can make even a grown man cry. For her doctoral thesis at Stanford University, Lakmali Jayasinghe decided to explore ways in which visa law and policy impinge on the rights and dignities of applicants from the Global South. Her research spanned everything from immigration, borders, border surveillance, and human rights. It was this doctoral thesis that interested me, and so I caught up with Dr. Lakmali Jayasinghe just before she left Sri Lanka for Stanford to get a little more understanding on why the Global South, basically people like us, go through what we do when we want to travel. So welcome Lakmali to Kaleidoscope. Your doctoral thesis explored the way visa laws and policies impinge on the rights and dignities of applicants from the Global South. What were your main findings, especially when it comes to people from countries like ours who have to bear their very bones in that process?
So there were many interesting research findings, and I think two findings would be of interest to you, I think, and given that we are right now talking about, restrictions to do with COVID and travel. One is the fact that the visas come into being in a very specific socio-political context about 10 years before the Second World War. So it's not such a recent phenomena if you look at the history of the visa. So it comes about when Jewish applicants who are trying to flee from the Holocaust, from Nazi persecution, when they try to leave Europe, certain countries in Europe introduce these restrictions because they do not want these Jewish refugees in their countries. So that very specific socio-political history is something I was very intrigued by when I was studying the visa law and policy and the kinds of histories behind those laws and policies. The second point is to do with the fossilization, I would like to call it, of visa law and policy. And what I mean by that is how some of these very discriminatory, racist policies have been used to control the movement of citizens like ourselves from the global south. And that sort of transference of these laws and policies without necessarily being critically aware of those sort of racist biases which come along with those laws is another interesting finding of my research.
Why is it that countries that speak so highly of individual privacy and human rights subject others to such indignities?
Wonderful question, Savitri. Again, I think this has to do with our past. Our history, and as we all know, countries like Sri Lanka in the global south have a colonial history, right? So there are certain neo-colonial attitudes which are embedded in these visa laws and policies, which I think are not being critically thought about when these laws are applied to, again, citizens like ourselves.
Given what the pandemic has taught us about travel, what policies do you think needs to change in the immediate in the context of adding that dignity to this whole visa process?
So one of the concerns I have, especially in this pandemic period and even in the post-pandemic period, is the danger of more restrictions being introduced to the visa process by the first world. For instance, already if you look at the digital COVID certificate, which was launched on July 1st, just a month ago roughly, by the European Union, it does not recognize the AstraZeneca version of the vaccine that we have received in Sri Lanka. It only recognizes the vaccines which have been okayed by the European Medicines Agency. Now, what does that mean for you and I as citizens of countries like Sri Lanka who want to travel to Europe? So these are some of the bigger concerns we have to be aware of in the post-pandemic or the pandemic period actually.
In the longer term, how can visas be better managed for this part of the world, protecting the global south's rights, so to speak?
So I think it doesn't cost a lot to give dignity to another human being, and in this specific scenario, how can we make the whole visa application process more dignified? Is it necessary that applicants have to go through an extremely undignifying process and face a lot of processes which violate your privacy, which require you to give away extremely sensitive information, which make you feel like you are really second-class citizens of the world? So I think one of the things which are important to consider is how can we humanize this process, because there is no way that we can really get rid of the visa process, but then can we not make it into a more dignified process?
And do you think that will ever happen?
I think we should try our best to make that happen, and I think it's it is partly our responsibility to push for changes which we need to be working on in the future, and I hope that's where my own research will contribute to.
Now, wouldn't that be just perfect if only dignity is brought back into the visa process, like Lakmali said? Thank you so much, Lakmali, for coming in. Good luck in your work at Stanford, and I hope more research will hopefully bring in more results. Mirissa is one of the most beautiful beaches in the south of the island and the largest fishing port on the south coast, sitting right on the southern tip of the island. But these fishing ports are going to find themselves out of business if climate change continues at this pace, as global seafood catch will decline by up to 40% by 2050. An 18-year-old from Badulla stomped on the norm that boys don't play with dolls. Nigation Sivasundaram makes lifelike dolls, and his version of Deepika Padukone and runner-up of Miss Universe Adeline Castellino went viral on social media and were noticed by the celebrities themselves. Here he is on Life in 60.
I make lifelike dolls based on celebrities and people I admire. I purchase ready-made Barbie doll and handmade their outfit, hair and makeup to match the inspiration. The inspiration comes from my mother. She makes dolls using newspaper. Many people did not understand why I make dolls. They believe that it is not suitable for men, but I don't think it is true. I want to change the mindset of people and set an example for all those who wish to follow my footsteps.
If you like what we had for you today, do like us on YouTube, subscribe to Kaleidoscope with Savitri Rodrigo and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We need to stay safe, everyone. Please don't go out unless you really have to. We will be back next week. Take heed to our Kaleidoscope takeaway. We are the first generation to feel the effect of climate change and the last generation who can do something about it. Barack Obama.